Welcome to Make It, Share It, the podcast where we explore the simple but profound process to overcome fear, doubt, perfectionism, and more enemies of creativity. Make it and share it.
We'll talk to creators of all kinds, from artists and writers to entrepreneurs and inventors, to learn about their creative process, the challenges they faced, and how they overcame them by making and sharing.
Whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or someone who wants to create but feels stuck, this podcast is for you. Creativity, meet courage.
Hey, welcome back to Make It, Share It. Excited to get some more time just to talk about creativity and talk about really just being courageous with what we make and sharing it. You guys know that's the heart of this show. Coop, Lauren, always good to see you guys. And then today our special guest is Matt Murph. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, so we'll talk a lot about Matt's story and then some things he's making and sharing. One he's made and shared quite a while ago, and then something new that's going on that should be pretty fun. So what we do like to start out, though, is just, speaking of that, just something that's kind of lighthearted, getting to know you a little bit. And so here's the question I thought about for you, which is, in the past 3 months, just take 3 months, what song have you listened to the most?
That's a really, really good one. The most in 3 months. I play guitar and drums along to songs all the time. And so the most, probably Dream Theater, Pull Me Under. I mean, it's real random.
Yeah.
It's a musician's song. It's a long 10-minute epic of just guitars on top of guitars stacked on with more guitars and a lot of drums.
That's great. That's you might need to explain it to Coop. Of all of us, he doesn't really get into that kind of esoteric music stuff, but
I don't get it.
Yeah. That's great. Do you know that band, Coop? Have you heard of them?
I do. Dream Theater's a deep cut, man. That's and I would say the same thing where my music nerd friends, like one of my best friends growing up was like a very, very good jazz drummer all the way through college. And like, he was better at us than music in like the third grade. And then it just continued for his whole life. And he was super into Dream Theater.
Yeah.
So I learned about a lot of bands like that through musicians that were just so much better than me. Because I was like, I don't get it. And they're like, Coop, we know. We know. But that's where he would teach me some of the rhythms and some of the things that were going on with a band like that. That's how I got into Rush, because my best friend was a drummer and was obsessed with Neil Peart and couldn't do the things Neil Peart was doing. And so like, really good musicians get drawn to bands that challenge them, and they don't. A lot of the music you can hear, you can figure out in 2 seconds. I know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. So when you hit a band that doesn't, and you still like the music, it's really alluring and captivating, because you're like, what are they doing? And then you're in.
Yeah, I've probably been playing Rush and Dream Theater wrong for decades, because they're masters of, the universe when it comes to musical complexity.
I'm just over here thinking it's probably one of those bands that I didn't know their name, but I know the song. But it's obvious I know neither. Oh, well.
This one might have, they always have one song that got radio play at some point, which is also what it takes to keep a career. You need that to have a fan base big enough to learn about you and then continue to see you in live shows for the next 20 years. Yeah. And I feel like all those bands, Queensryche, all those like that, had at least one mega hit at some point in the 90s or early 2000s, and that'll sustain you for the rest of your life, which is great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So true.
Okay. Well, just to kind of set it up for people that don't know you, Matt, so we'll talk about it, but you're a businessman. You created a company in the early 2000s and built that up, and then sold it, and I think still a partner in that company. So we can talk about that, and then done a lot in stock market and learning about all that world, living in that world, living and breathing that world, and then decided, okay, I don't want to live and breathe that world anymore. So I'm going to do some private investing and just do more of that. You continue to do that. So there's this whole world of making and sharing a business, that's part of your story, but then also music, right? We've lately, I feel like, had these quadruple threat people on the show, but, a musician, so at an early age, just playing piano and getting into music and just continued that journey all the way up to, like you mentioned, playing to this day, in different environments. So then you've got flying, you're a pilot, you do that, you're a photographer. Apparently you've been paid for some of your photography, which is awesome.
Accidentally, yeah.
Yeah. That's the best kind. Like, wait, what? I'm getting paid for this? So there's a lot that we could talk about. We're so glad that you're on the show to hit these different aspects. But let's start with our usual turning point. So a turning point, just something that changed the way that you think and you live, you relate in the world. Usually, it's something we're looking back that was earlier in life that you look back and go, man, that really changed the trajectory of my life. Is there one that comes to mind for you that would be good to share?
Yeah, let me hit 3 real quickly, because the first 2, when I was a kid that showed up to elementary school selling candy, because I learned in 4th or 5th grade that I could buy a box of blow pops for $5, and then I can turn it around and sell them for $0.25 a piece, and there's 100 in a box. So trading 5 for 25 as a 4th and 5th grader was like, this is just like free. This was easy, right? I mean, selling candy in school was like the easiest thing on earth. And then in high school, me and a buddy started selling roses at popular date spots in Houston. We'd go down to the gallery or water wall and we'd buy a dozen roses for like $5 and then individually wrap them. And then we walk up to couples that are walking in the beautiful surrounding, being like, would you like to buy a rose for the lady? It's a trap. You can't say no. And so we could have charged whatever we wanted, but really we only charged $2 or $3 per rose. And so that would provide us money for the weekend. So what I see in hindsight in the rearview mirror was entrepreneurial habits, seeing opportunities, and probably out of, I hate to say the word laziness, seeing the lowest hanging fruit and saying like, oh, can do that, can turn this. And so then when I launched out into the real world, I would say I went to Baylor and I had a real job for like 5 minutes. I went to work for KPMG. Great company. It's just not for me. And so that was a turning point of like, I like small things. I like the creative spaces. I like building stuff. I like being in an 80,000 person company, like marching in line towards a large goal that I truly don't care about, was really difficult for me to get on board with. And so I was like, I'm out. And so I think when you take those 3 examples, it's like, I don't think I was built for cube farms and big companies. I kind of say, if the company has an HR department, I'm out. It's just too big. That's the turning point where I start to lose interest, I think.
Coop, Lauren, anything before I move into making his internet company?
I love that. I think, even the photo idea that you've done recently, where it was kind of like it was accidental, right? That your photos were.
That was, when I think I've got, it's tough for me to say, am I right brained or left brained? I really don't know. I know that I love taking pictures of cool places. So I would take pictures on like vacations, and I would take pictures underwater with GoPros, where I actually had a knockoff GoPro because the first ones were too expensive at first. And I decided to just upload some photos to Shutterstock and be like, well, let's just see what happens. Yeah. And then an underwater photo of a stingray made like $1,000, and I was like,
that's
what
crazy.
is happening? So it's not
like accidental low hanging
it's
fruit.
totally, and in digital photography, you get to take 1,000 photos and keep one. So it's not like, I don't know my way around f-stops. I don't know my way around aperture and shutter speeds and all the cool things that I probably should know. But I know when I see something that like, that's cool, that looks good, it needs to be captured. It could be underwater, above water, it could be mountains, it could be a skier, it could be anything. It's like, that's awesome. Like, that needs to be captured and used somewhere. And so that was like this a side thing. Photography to me is what I would call an evergreen revenue stream. There are things in the world that you can do once that have the potential to pay you forever. Writing a good song, that can pay you forever. There are businesses out there that have royalties that pay forever. And then there are businesses that learn along the lines of like, that's not good for us. It's really good for them. That's not good for us. Like, so when I look at the world of like insurance, it's like, You can go sell insurance plans, but you have to keep selling because the residual just goes down and down and down. So there's other businesses where like you sell something, you get residual, you get royalties, and it just goes forever. And so I see things like that. It's like, what can you do once and it work maybe forever? I like that. That's lower hanging fruit to me than like having to churn and burn and sell like forever. So that's a small
No more
piece of the
selling
photography world.
roses. No more selling roses, huh?
I think the opportunity is still there. Is it worth my time right now?
No.
I doubt it. But like,
Yeah.
if you're a high schooler, my gosh, sell
Stand out
candy,
the
sell
AMC.
roses. It's a,
Yep.
you know, and it's funny. My family got to go to Italy this past summer, and so we're sitting at this restaurant, and the Pantheon is like 5 feet away, and the Pantheon's like a 2,000-3,000-year-old building. It's just amazing. And so there's a patio, there's all these people. It's like a piazza, and lo and behold, somebody walked up to us and said, "Would we like to buy a flower?" And I was like, "No, I know this trick." I'm like, first off, I already love these people, and they already love me, so like, we're not doing the whole $2 and $3 flower thing. Although it's probably 5 or 10, who knows? But I was like, but I respected the game. I was like, you're hustling. I get it. You're doing what you can do right now, and if that's to turn that flower into $5, then do it.
It's awesome. I think Cuban had that famous story. That's how he started. He sold garbage bags door to door. Same thing. He'd buy a box of garbage bags, and I was like, how did he sell garbage bags? He was like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And he would sell singular garbage bags to people in his neighborhood, and they'd buy it, even if it was just because it was a kid. And the kid asked for $1 for 3 bags. He's like, sure. But if he could sell the whole box, he was making 10 times what it cost him. And now he had money. Yeah. And he said he'd do it in one walk around the block, and he was done.
And it's, when you look at something like that from a business standpoint, how does supply and demand equal out here? I look at it as every single person in the world needs garbage bags. There's your demand. It's not like you're going to houses where it's like, hey, you know what? 1 in 20 houses in this neighborhood use garbage bags. That's a tougher proposition there. But every house needs a lot of them. Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Well, let's jump into the making, sharing part. So there's 2 things we want to hit. One is going back a bit into your first company, really, and leaving KPMG, starting this internet company, consulting company, web design company, and what happened there as you were making and sharing. And I think what we'll do is just hit both making and sharing of that first. Sure. And then we'll put a bow on that and then talk about an example of a company you're working on right now that you're in the midst of making and sharing. So let's go back. Early 2000s, take us back there and what led to making this internet company.
Yeah, we'll talk about the successes here and leave the failures out. Because believe me, there were plenty of them. I don't want to bore you with the failed companies that I've been involved in. So I think what's funny looking in the rearview mirror on this one is that Katie and I got married in 2004. And 5 minutes after we got married, I said, I'm quitting my job, which the timing is hilarious because I had a good job. It's like, when is it wise for a husband to quit his job? Right after you get married? Probably not. But I had that pull on me that was like, I got to build something. I got to do something, right? And so it started off as a consulting company where I was working with startups. So the way that I could sum up that business starting was, I hate to use this kind of language. It just is what it is. Rich people have expensive ideas. Okay. I was there to solve the expensive idea. They would say, I want to build this. I want to do this. And I'd be like, I got you. I can build this. We can do this. I'll launch the website. We can sell it online. We can do wholesale. We can tie this into whatever. And so I got passed along from one rich guy to the next, just building out very expensive ideas. And rich gals too. One of them was the heir to the Swarovski fortune, which was like a fantastic client. And I just would build, I worked for John Deere. I built stuff for John Deere dealerships. I built stuff for technology startups. Like the range of clients I had was so wide. And it was so good for me because what I got to do was I got to see all these businesses up close, make all their mistakes, and just not even knowing it, mentally taking them down. Like, hey, you know what? When you're working in this industry, don't do that. And then when you're working over here, don't do that. And when you're designing a space, don't spend 4 weeks trying to figure out what kind of light fixture you're going to hang because that doesn't matter. It's fun. It just don't matter. And so I got to do all that. And then what happened was, consult is really, it's a service. Okay. Technically it's a service, and it's a little bit feast or famine. So I would have all these projects pile on, and then I would have some of them roll off. And so you had these peaks and valleys, that I was not a huge fan of, as a young, married, growing a family type of person. And so this is bizarre, y'all. This is 100% true. In the middle of the night, I had a dream, and a dream hit me of what I was supposed to build next. The name came to me, the entire idea came to me, and a good bit of how it's going to be done came to me. And so I woke up in the middle of the night, I was taking notes, and Katie remembers this because she would say that I was feverishly taking notes, like in the middle of the night and throughout the next day. And that idea was what's called Easy Tithe. So that name, as brilliant as I think it is now, was not, I can't say that that's my idea. It's just not fair for me to kind of claim that and the success of that as my own. And so the idea was that churches needed a way to accept donations online. Now, these days, it's super commonplace. Most of them are still doing it with the software that we built, which is great. But back in the middle 2000s, that was actually pretty new. It was like, what are you going to do? You can go to PayPal, which I call as a money bus. It just takes money from one place to the next. It's not personal. It doesn't really support a church's mission. There's no interface that is congregant to church. It's just a cold transfer of money. So PayPal was a terrible option. Meanwhile, I had all these churches asking me, hey, this is what we got to do. How do we do it? And so that was, those questions were kind of like before the dream, but it was kind of preceding, like, there is a huge demand out here and no one's answering it. And the church economy tends to work 3 to 5 years behind the regular public economy, as in what's available. So nobody was answering this demand. And so I started building this web app to solve this problem and to make it really, really a warm transfer from someone's church website. They're viewing the women's ministry, they're viewing the kids camp, and then they can donate online. And so I built that. I think the first rendition of it took me a couple months, and then it was time to sell it, which is always a hilarious point when you launch or you open the doors, or it's like there's a point to where the building is kind of done, and it's like, oh, now you have to grab customers. That's the hard part. You thought building it was hard. It's not. So I went months without a customer. And I would say, I don't really remember how discouraged I was, because I knew deep down, I was like, this is going to work. This has to happen. There are hundreds of thousands of churches, low 100, like 200, something like that, 1,000 churches. I used to know church statistics like the back of my hand. And I've pretty much forgotten them all now. So there's all these churches out there, and less than 1% have 2,000 typical weekend attendance, which means they actually have money to do something. And then the other 99% of churches don't. Most churches have 500 people or less. They've got 1.5 full-time employees. They got no money. So that was what I wanted to answer to. I was like, I'm going to build this. It's $49 a month. I don't care how big you are. I don't care how small you are. It's just $49 a month, and it's going to solve all your problems in this area. So selling it became the mission, and what a great lesson that was, because I would get phone calls. I wound up getting this 1-800 number that was like 888 Tithe or something. It was a great number. And so people would call in and they would ask, these conversations were 5 minutes long, right? 5 minutes. Hey, how does it work? This and that, because it's all brand new, by the way. You're almost like doing, Starlink rocket science when you're talking about church donations online in the early 2000s. And so I would say it works great. Trust me. And then sometimes they'd call back and then they'd get me, and then again, and I kind of have to play this game of like, yeah, it's a one-man company in a bedroom in a house. Trust me with your money, church. It's a hilarious conversation to try to dance around. And I was always, I knew that, like, once I get one, my little conversation changes, because instead of telling you how it's going to work, I can just tell you, hey, just go to Rocky Mountain Baptist, look at what they're doing. I think they did a great job with the integration. They're one of my favorites. They're the only ones at the time, because they were the first. And so then I had the conversation of, go look at them. They're doing it. And the double-edged sword of the church economy doing the monkey see, monkey do thing, which still is rampant. It's like one person does this, then all the churches go, oh, we're doing that. is that they would see this church do it well. They'd be like, oh, it works for them. It's going to work for us. And so then started to build this thing up. And so pretty early on, I had a vision of, hey, once we get to a certain number here, Katie, you can quit your job. She was a dance choreographer. She taught cheer and dancing, which is her history. I was like, she can quit. We can do the family thing. And that came along, and for it, the company just wound up doubling every year, just doubling and doubling, and to the point where I had to get office space and employees and kind of really blow this thing out. And the beautiful part of it for me was that I loved what I did. I loved who I talked to day in and day out. The mission, the why, like if you ever, like selling a why was like, well, this is the best why in the world, because at the top of the page, if I ever wrote a business plan, which I don't, but if I wrote one, the top line was, if churches had more money, the world would be a better place. I was like, I'm going to build this thing, and it's going to do that. And my goal is like, I'm going to flood churches with money, because that's how easy the program is going to be to use. And they've got to solve this gap. Checks were dying, right? Nobody who writes a check these days, who wrote a check those days. And so, it just continued to grow. And I actually never wanted to sell it. Companies would come along and wanted to buy it, and we would get in conversations, and I'd be like, why? This thing works, and I love it, and we're killing it. Until the right person came along, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have to sell this thing. For two reasons. If I don't, he's going to crush me. Not because he's mean, because he's in the same space. He's got deeper pockets, and his experience was far more vast than mine. So I knew how to build stuff. I knew how to sell to the church, and I knew how to solve churches' problems, because we got into other things. We got into women's retreat registrations. We got into book selling. We got into music. Like we got into anything that needed to transact from a church perspective, or registering for beach retreat, right? The program could do all this. And so when you see someone else come into your space, and I noticed them, and it was like, I'm a little concerned here. Our footprint is still much bigger. We are the name. Like, I don't know how it goes now, but if you had Googled church online giving, we were all the results. It was fantastic, because first mover advantage, don't ever shortchange that one. First mover advantage it's awesome if you accidentally get it or purposely get it. So did eventually sell it, and then remained a partner with it, which was the right move for me and the family. So,
man, so there's one thing I want to jump on and then turn it over, which is the beginning part. So you went to Baylor, then we're at KPMG.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know how to develop and write code?
Not well.
Okay, because it was just, and it's like, I feel like now every Make It Shared episode, I was like, yeah, I was just reading this thing about startups, but like just reading about when you want to create something technical, but you're not a technical person, what do you do? This is a question that I can't remember. It was something, again, out of Y Combinator. I don't remember which person was addressing it, but the answer was, you've got to become technical. Don't go try to, if you're like the visionary and you're going to, want to create this technical thing, if you go try to find like a technical person, they're not looking for visionaries to work for usually. They're doing their own thing. So you've got to educate yourself enough and begin to do some of the technical things, at least to the point to get the boat out to sea. Yeah. And then you can hire and you can get people much better than you are at those things to scale it. So I was just curious about how much you had to dig in once you had that dream and teach yourself more about coding and get it started.
Yeah. A couple of things that I would say about that. I did not know how to do what I needed to know how to do to build this thing out. I got a book that was really thick, and I'm not a good reader. I don't just digest books for fun. It was a coding book that was just yellow pages thick. And I was like, but I got to learn this stuff, because I got to learn encryption. I got to learn payments. I got to learn like all this stuff. So to anyone listening that is looking at doing a tech startup, I have two options for you. You learn it and you master it, or you hire what I call the ninja. Every company out there has a ninja, and that person knows everything. They just, like, technically, they just know how to solve it. And if they don't, they can learn it like tonight or over lunch. It's the person that is just crazy gifted that you can say, we've got to solve this problem. And I know that you can learn it over the next 2 or 3 hours, even though you've never done it. Go do that. So you've got to find that ninja. But perhaps even more importantly, you have to, because a lot of startups don't have a lot of money, you have to handcuff that ninja. And I don't mean it in a negative way. You have to get them involved and then keep them involved, which means you might have to give them ownership. If you can't afford to pay a ninja whatever they're worth, which is 6 figures at the very least, then you've got to get creative. You've got to say, I want you to be a part of this. And I think this is going to blow up if we do what we're doing. And as a result, I'm going to give you 15 or 20% ownership or whatever it takes, because if you're not the ninja, you need your ninja to stick around for long enough until you're really blowing and going and you can afford to go hire whatever ninja you want. Now, that's a lot of time between not being able to afford one and then being able to replace one. Right. And so ownership and stock options and that kind of thing, like that's pretty critical, because you're dependent upon that person. If you're not the ninja, you're dependent upon the ninja.
Yep. It's good. Okay. I've got like 3 more
so
questions.
good.
I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
I didn't.
No, I'm impressed. You read a coding book and just did it. I just thought maybe that was part of your, I don't know, education, but I know you're
I was
super
a
smart, Matt.
designer. Oh, well, thank you. I was a designer. Like,
Yeah.
I could design websites and logos
Yeah.
and interfaces and make it look pretty. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the guy that sees every little pixel on the screen. I'm like, that pixel's out of place. It has to move. Like,
Yeah.
So the coding part was like, I got to learn it. And so in technology, thank the Lord for anyone that's actually in technology. There's books you can read, and then there's reverse engineering. You get your hands on something that's already working. There's code examples and that is like free college, because for better or worse, I mean, coding changes really, 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 really fast. It's like you have to learn a new language every 2 or 3 years. Like, that's kind of how annoying technology is. But there's examples out there. So like, yeah, you can read about how to do it and read all these principles of, procedures and pointers and calls and databases and all this other technical junk. And then go find some code that like allows you to reverse engineer it and just go through it and just be like, I think I kind of see what it's trying to do. It's trying to look at this piece and pull it and then display it here in this way. So it's to me, it's like Legos.
Yeah.
It's like, here's your pieces, build the castle.
Yeah. You sound like a problem-solving opportunist. Like, you see an opportunity and a problem and you love to solve it. Do you struggle with like maintaining things? Do you need a problem to solve, or are you more project-based? Like you want to be all in on a project. You'll learn the code because it gets you the end result that you want. But once that's over, you're kind of like, and what's next?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I don't think I'm a project person. And I'm saying that because I've got friends that are project people where something's always got to be going on. I think what I hold on to a lot of times is I want to enjoy my life and I want to love what I do.
Yeah.
So if things don't support those goals, then I don't really care what the project is. I don't care what money's involved. It's just like, it's a no. I don't play woulda, coulda, shoulda, really. I mean, I kind of look at things I've said no to, but yeah, I could have moved out of state and moved different things and had different jobs. I think an opportunity comes up at least every 6 months. It's like, hey, this would be huge. Like, but look what all has to get sacrificed to go do that. I'm like, nah, don't need it. So I don't think I always need an iron in the fire. I think I like to have a good why, WHY in the fire. And if there's not one, then I can just learn other things. Because I think during the season, like as Easy Tithe built up and sold, which I'll tell you a really quick kind of funny story about when I actually did choose the right buyer for that. And I sat down at the table with this guy who was just infinitely smarter than me, infinitely deeper pockets than me, far more experience. But I had to have a table image like poker because I needed to negotiate the best deal for Easy Tithe. And so I said, hey, this thing's been growing 100% every year. We don't really need you, right? And he said, I'm going to grow it 1,000% per year. And I was like, crap, I believe you. Like, so I thought high and mighty might not be the right word, but I had a confidence in like, this is our graph, right? It's just, and he's like, you're wasting time. You're wasting time. It's a land grab right now, and you're not even grabbing any land. You're with your little 100% per year business. I was like, okay. So yeah, so that was fun. But for years I stayed on with that and kind of did a lot of knowledge sharing and partnered with that company. I'm still technically a partner, although I don't do anything. But what happened was it put me into what I would call accidental retirement. We were so good at automating things that took up time, from support to billing to receivables. I mean, I think if there was something I did well, was I automated the program so it doesn't need a lot of work and a lot of help. And so with private equity firms getting involved every single year, buying more pieces of the larger puzzles, like, so here we are, we have hundreds of employees now, and there are better designers than me, there's better programmers than me, there's better database engineers than me, there's better marketing people than me, there's better leaders. Like, I was like, what am I really doing here well? And it got to a point where I would say the answer was nothing. It's like the company outgrew me, and so things that I used to do, well, we had a team for, like, and I mean, if I wore 12 hats, well, now there's 30 people underneath each one of those hats. So it was like, and retirement, which kind of, right? I mean, it was, I could have stopped forever and just traveled the world, which is, I think, what a lot of young entrepreneurs think. And because I meet with entrepreneurs constantly, and although they won't say it this succinctly, they want to build something and they want to hit the grand slam. And they, so many people, I think, they put such a value on that I would tell them, bad goal. Let's rearrange what you actually want to do. Because hitting the grand slam is exciting for a month, and I don't care what you got paid. I've read enough case studies and experienced it myself that it's like, I don't care if you got $1 billion and you bought a jet online. It's like, that's exciting in that case, I'll give it 2 months, and you're like, what's next? Right.
Yeah.
So,
because we were, made to work. Like, work is not a punishment. It actually is part of what we were created to do. So I was curious about how, the early retirement that you found yourself in accidentally.
Disorienting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you say we were made to work, yes and amen. A fruitful job or hobby is one of the top 3 things that contributes to your happiness.
Totally.
I think all psychologists that are worth their salt would say, yeah, that's absolutely in the big 3. And it's one of the ones that it's really the only one that doesn't involve other people or have to, right? When it comes to like, what makes you happy? What are you doing? Well, seeing the fruits of your labor,
right,
is massive. Some people can nurse a 9-month sales deal and get a big commission. Some people need to mow the lawn and see that the grass looks good, which is a different sales cycle. But when you can see what you've done with your hands or your mind or what have you, it's so powerful that I got to experience all that disappearing for a little while, of like the transition. I don't know how long that transition lasted. It was certainly longer than I wanted it to be. But when that was removed, it was like, what's missing these days? You know why I'm just kind of moping around, taking 10, 12 vacations a year, which is honestly stupid. Like, I can talk to you all about how many you probably should take and how many you don't need to take. But once I didn't realize it. But for a long time, I was like, I don't see the fruits of my labor anymore. Yeah. That's what's missing. I'm not producing. I'm not. And so I was like, then I was looking in the rearview mirror of, man, look at all those years that I got to do exactly what I wanted to do, exactly with the people that I wanted to do it with. I built the office. It overlooked the airport. It had a ping pong table. I was like, I designed the little world the way that I loved it and got to live in it. Like, that's ridiculous. That's like, how blessed am I that I even got to do that? And thinking, it took a while to realize, it was like, that's the piece that's missing. I'm not working with people. I'm not problem solving. We're not building things. I'm not looking at weekly metrics of like, hey, this is how much we grew or whatever. It's like, those are hugely powerful things to the brain, you know, whereas if you just vacation, that gets old. You know, there's kind of a bell curve of vacation satisfaction that I think, believe it or not, tops out earlier than you think it might, where it's like, why the heck are we going somewhere? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Coop, you got anything? Just make sure before I.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right.
I'm just listening.
Cool. Okay. So just because we're like 36 minutes in, I want to make sure, I want to kind of, there's, you know, the past sometimes, like you were saying, it can feel like, okay, everything went from 0 to 100 miles an hour success, you know, moving now to something in the present that you're trying to build. Tell us a little bit about, you know, you kind of mentioned before we got started, this clothing brand, this business. You're in the early stages of making this. So I think it'd be fascinating to hear how you're tackling something new. So tell us a little bit about it and what that process has been.
Yeah. So from a make it, share it, you know, which I love this podcast. I love the name and the concept of it. Like I'm in the beginning phases again. And this one I actually am pretty hopeful and excited about, because I had this, you know, so I've got 2 girls right now. They're 14 and 17. So it's wonderful. Love it. Loving being a daddy of daughters. It's absolutely for me, because I was not the kid that played football or probably any regular sport. So I'm perfect to raise girls right now. But I had this kind of aha moment a year ago or so, and it was born out of frustration, which again, most businesses are solving a problem, right? And boy, do I see a lot that are they're making solutions to problems that don't exist. It's actually extremely common. But so I'm sitting there on the couch with Katie, and I said, I've got it. It's women's bathing suits. Now, what do I know about women's bathing suits? Nothing.
I was
Absolutely
not expecting
nothing.
that, Matt.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So here's the rub. I have 2 daughters. Finding a bathing suit for them is like curing cancer or something.
It's so frustrating.
You basically acquiesce into some solution that is like, whatever, I guess, I don't know, like you're never happy with it. I think the apparel world and market, and I've looked at all the big ones now, their goal is to train our daughters into being strippers. And my goal is quite the opposite. So I had this little conversation with Katie, and I said, youth female swimsuits. There's a market here that no one's doing what I want to do. And that conversation just kind of happened. And then it just died and kind of sat on the back burner for a year or so. I don't even know how long. Because I was like, I just don't know anything about it. I don't know manufacturing. I can market, I can sell, I can make stuff look good. But perhaps, I don't know, again, maybe the most complex article of clothing on earth, women's bathing suit, like somehow I'm going to try to get involved in this. But what happened months down the road was I was kind of noodling on like an apparel logo, and I was looking at all, like I've got a very quick defined process for creating a logo. I did a YouTube video on it a while back because I've had the same conversation 1,000 times. And I was like, I'm just going to record this and just go throw it out there. You want to know how to build a logo? Here it is. Spend an hour on it. 10-minute video, hour, create a logo. So I created this thing. I was like, that's it. That's an apparel brand. This is going to work. And then what happened as I kind of started going down this like rabbit trail of like, would I really start an apparel brand? Was like, this is the vehicle that is going to move youth female swimsuits. Because I can't just go from 0 to girls' bathing suits. That's not going to work. You got to have a brand. You got to have something's got to be the bus that this thing rides on, right? And so I started putting those pieces of the puzzle together, and it's like, you know what I have done before? I've sold apparel before. I've done a lot of random things, and so I did a silly T-shirt shop online like years ago, kind of like the Shutterstock deal, where I just threw a bunch of stuff out there, and it sold. I looked at it, a while back, and it's like, I've sold like thousands of dollars worth of T-shirts that I spent literally 5 minutes making. So I was like, so I understand the basics of like here's how you do it. Here's how you get it made. Here's how you get it shipped. Here's how here's the name to market it and this and that. It's like all these pieces of the puzzle. And so I started doing researching apparel brands, and I was like, what are the pain points they get into? Long story short, I won't have those pain points. One of them is you eventually need space to put stuff. I have an airplane hangar. You know how much stuff I could fit in there? Truckloads. Like if I fill that thing up because I'm selling that much, it's like I'm gonna get a bigger airplane hangar. Right? It wouldn't matter. So like paying for storage, like all these apparel startups are like, we had to pay $200 a month to get a 10 by 10. I was like, I have thousands of square feet. That's where we play pickleball. It's where I have a plane. It's like space. I got space. I'm not gonna. So I was like, okay, not a pain point. Understanding SEO or selling online or building a website is like I've got literally decades of experience there. So it's not like I'm gonna have to learn how to build a website. So I was like, I think this is it. Like, what do other than, and I'm being serious, other than not knowing anything about manufacturing apparel, I've got all the other pieces.
Hasn't been a problem before for you. You learn
just
coding.
It's learnable. Like somebody started Hurley, somebody started Rip Curl and Rusty and Aviator Nation and Patagonia and North Face and like all these cool things. Like somebody started those, and a lot of them not that long ago. So it's like, I'll start one, and once it's like, I kind of look at it like this. I think this is probably the only business that I've ever looked at it like this. I think the apparel brand, which is going to be called Mivallo, it's a brand new word. Boy, did I research words. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Like if I can, the apparel is going to be what I'm going to call a good idea. It'll do X amount. We'll just call it X. It's going to do X amount of business. If I do the other part well, if I solve every mother's problem of finding their daughter a bathing suit, because let's be real, they go shopping with the daughter. When it comes time for my girls to bathing suit, you think I'm going on that trip? Hard pass. It's not happening. And so it's them. Well, one of the best markets to solve problems for is mothers. Mothers talk a lot to each other. You do something well in that arena, you don't even need to market. You will spend $0 on Google. You don't need a billboard. You don't need squat. You need to make one mom happy. Because if you do that, you have a distribution channel to at least 100 other moms. And if 2 of those become happy, now you've got 200 other moms. Like things that do well in that region can blow up if you do it well. If you do it poorly, same thing goes. It's just as fast the opposite direction. But so that's kind of where that is. And if I was to address the make it, I had this logo I'm trying to figure out. So I've got so I drew this on paper. It did not look that good. When I drew it on paper,
cool.
there was more dots. The M was pretty janky. It was all messed up. And I fought for weeks and months of I'm not naming another company after myself, because the consulting group that started Easy Tithe was called the Murph Group. Great idea at the time. Hated it for years and years and years and years and years later. Did not like having my name in that thing. So I was like, not gonna be called Murph anything. I don't want that in there. So what do I do when I name a company? I look at all the small towns in every other country.
Oh, yeah.
I go to Italy, I go to France, I just start looking at a map. Just give me the name of literally every town in the world. Unfortunately, that thing looks a lot like an M. So it's going to have to start with an M. Yeah. Can't start it with anything else. So that narrowed down the list of words. And I really liked Hawaiian stuff, but I was like, Hawaiian stuff sounds so Hawaiian that it's hard to be outside of Hawaiian. It's only 14 letters in their alphabet. They all sound the same. They start repeating syllables. So if I wanted to work in Florida or Colorado, huma huma puka puka, whatever is giving out a Hawaiian word. It's just not going to work. Right. Yeah. So, and I can't remember where I've read it or heard it, but if you can just invent a brand new word that's never existed, it could be Kleenex. It could be just, it's so much easier down the road. Yeah. And so you've got this caveat with a new business of you got to have a name. Unfortunately, when it comes to branding and apparel, you need a good name. If you're doing any type of service, mowing lawns, cutting hair, building websites, my God, your name just doesn't matter. It barely matters, if anything, because the value of a brand is what the customers say about it. It's not what you say about it. So all the work you did over here, just spend 2 hours on it, do a good job, and then sell it well, do it well. That's actually what will make that a good word. Nike, like if we never heard that word and I slid that on a piece of paper with crossing, like, that's the name of your new company, but Nike, what kind of, like, are you joking?
Nice.
And what's with this curved check mark? That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Yep.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore. It's not the dumbest thing. It's the best thing you've ever seen, right?
Yep.
It's the best
Mhm.
word out there. So I actually had to do a lot more work than I expected to find, and it's not a small town. It's the merging of a few different things, but it's like, these days, you want a domain name, you can mash your hands on the keyboard and push .com, it's taken.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe, like, my top 50 choices taken.
Wow.
So I was like, what? I mean, I was stuck for a couple of weeks. I'm just like, I gotta get a name that has the potential to be killer. What's Mivallo worth right now? 0, right? But down the road is where the hope is, right? So finding something these days for a startup, I feel your pain. I've done it. I've done the whole name a company, build a logo, buy a domain name thing so many times, and it was always easier the further back you go in time.
Yeah.
Like, it's unbelievable. Like, you probably could have bought podcast.com, like just the most basic, wonderful domain 20 years ago.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Everything. It's like now you're down to like 17 syllable words with hyphens and tildes. There's just nothing out there. And so as the dust has settled now on the making it portion, I'm like, I actually think I like this name better than my other so-called top 50 choices that were all taken.
Yeah.
Because it means whatever I say it means. It's brand new. It's not even a word. And there's so much I can do with it stylistically, and it's 7 characters. Like I used to coach businesses on naming and logos and domain names, and there's some really, really critical things. Keep it short. Try to say what you do in your domain name. Try, because it just helps SEO so much down the road. And try to avoid the dashes and the tildes and underscores and like just so. I don't know. Part of me feels like I accidentally plucked a diamond out of the sky, getting a 7-letter domain that I think will be marketable. We'll see.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know where we are on that last question, but it's brand new, and I want to do all kinds of apparel from shirts and sweats and hats and swimwear and flip flops, just all the stuff. All the stuff that I put 50 brands on a screen, and I was like, I need to belong with, but be better than. Like, that's kind of part of my process.
I'm so excited. I'm ready. I got an almost 15-year-old. Sign me up.
And is not buying a bathing suit for her.
It's a beat
thrashing.
down.
We want
fight.
them to be happy. We want them to like
Feel cute.
Yeah, but like also once you covered.
Yeah.
We'll have to negotiate probably. Fortunately my girls are pretty modest, but it's like it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I look at the marketing that all the big brands are doing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you guys are purposely
I know.
trying to turn our little girls into
gross.
strippers. How is this, even in our tiny little country that by the vast majority professes Christianity, it's like, I don't think I'm willing to let this normalize.
Yeah.
Like, I can go fight this battle.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be normal out there. It's not like I'm going to beat Quicksilver with their game. I don't want to.
Right.
I think it's a great brand, but it's like, but I can do this thing over here
An alternative.
that everyone else is ignoring, and maybe somebody hear this and goes and does it. Great. I'm when it comes to like ideas in competition and secrets leaking or stuff like that, I'm pretty relaxed with it. I think when I meet with entrepreneurs and they kind of would say, this is kind of really hush hush. Just talk to, I don't want to tell anybody about it. It's like, that's cool and all, but like, if you're going to win, everybody's going to know what you're doing and you still have to be better.
Yeah.
So you're not going to dominate the world secretly. It's not going to happen, and kind of like selling trash bags. You know what the demand is on this type of stuff? Every girl that's 10 to I mean, when did bathing suits start getting trashy? I don't know. Is it 10, 12? It's like,
Yeah.
well, from there to 18 to 20 until they're probably going to, somewhere in that region, be off on their own, making their own decisions where mommy and daddy
Right.
aren't paying for it anymore. Like, there's a big window here where they all need something. And then they all need a new one next year. And really, a lot of them, they need 2 or 3 this year. Because I learned that, because I'm in a house full of women, one bathing suit actually doesn't do it. It's not, that doesn't work.
It's
So,
not
like,
enough.
I've had the same, let's not get into it. I've had a bathing suit for a long time, you know, and I'm like, why? To me, it's cool looking, billable, it looks great. Like, why would I ever need another one or a second? Like, it's good.
Yeah, I think
Probably
the only
good
thing
forever.
that changes for men is the length. That's the only trend. That's about it.
Yeah, and trends are going shorter right now, and
Oh yeah.
We don't need all that.
that for me is going to be like skinny jeans. I'm just going to go ahead and do a pass on
Skip
that and be like, y'all can go do that. It's cool in the gang for you. I guess I'm not wearing like a short pair of shorts like I'm in
No.
some 80s basketball team.
No.
Yeah, nobody needs to see a pale redhead on the beach doing that number.
Yeah, the what you just said is about the competition. It reminds me of Kevin Kelly, who he is a Silicon Valley guy, but he started Wired magazine, is where I think most people know him from. But he wrote a book about ideas and where they come from and how to spread them. But he sits now and listens to tons of young entrepreneurs coming in to go for capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the biggest thing that I see them making mistakes over is they'll come in and they'll start with like, this has never been done before. So he's like, no, because things that there's probably a reason, right? It's never been done before. And the odds of it working are almost non-existent.
Yeah.
So he's looking for someone to say, here's the proven market I want to enter into, but this is how I'm going to bring something new to it. So I know it's a business, it works, people need it, but I'm going to bring you this unique perspective and I need funding to get it off the ground. He's like, every time we're further down the road with that second one than the first one, but they think it's got to be this game-changing, never before done idea. And obviously those ideas come around, but it's just super hard and near impossible to make them work as a business. So it's just to echo what you're saying in terms of if you're out there in the business world, I think trying to make and you're worried about secrets getting out there. I'd say this is true for screenwriting too. I mean, this would come up a lot in screenplays of just, I can't tell anybody my idea, it might get taken. And it's like, no, just if you write a good script, you got to get it out there. And I guess that could happen. But most of the time, if you find something really good, you just want to go ahead and make that movie, not try to create a whole nother version of that script. So,
Yeah. You kind of touched on something that you almost said it with your mouth, and that is new and improved. Believe it or not, those are 2 of the most powerful words in marketing. New and improved.
New and improved.
It's sometimes it's just it's a slightly better mousetrap that is needed. You know what I mean? Not something that's just out of left field.
Yep.
Which a lot of times the left field ideas, big fan of them, usually have a lot of customer education that has to happen first. And if you've got to teach your buyer or your market the entire concept, I mean, Apple did it well, but again, like, who's Apple? One of the biggest companies in the world. So, it's a tall mountain to climb.
Yeah. Well, you can see that with the Vision Pro right now, which is, for those who don't know, it's their new spatial AR VR device that it's expensive. They knew it was going to go slow to start with, but they're full on education mode right now. The only thing right now is just how do we get people to put one of these on and get transported into another space and, see the benefit of it and the productivity. And honestly, they're getting more value right now in the enterprise space of getting companies to use it to train surgeons and pilots and all of that sort of thing, and may take off more there. But the point is they had the funds to go through that whole phase of losing money and just educating a market until it's ready, whereas most of us don't. So
most of us can't afford to have like a 5 to 10 year loss leader type of a situation where you're just shoveling money into a furnace. Like that's a Fortune 10 luxury.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's right.
You can count me out on all of that. Just for Mr. Analog, I hate all of it.
Yeah.
And to me, I watched an article this morning, Kent, that would have broke your heart as a storyteller.
Oh.
It was a showrunner from Netflix, and she has had 3 different shows on Netflix. And she's talking about what showrunners are being told now by streaming companies. And the term they're using is it's not second screen friendly. So your story that you're trying to tell in your TV show or your movie has to be able to be watched while someone's doing something else, and your show is not even being looked at. It's in their ear pods. So it's too complex, or there's too much to follow, and they would actually have to watch it to keep up with what you're trying to say. And that's not what our audience wants anymore. So it's like attention span is not there anymore. It has to be the simple A plus B equals C. Each episode needs to wrap up in a way that so they're calling it second screen. And I'm just like, man, I'm out. I'm out on all this. And I hope that this gets so bad that it means a backlash the other way. I don't understand why people want to be so distracted and somewhere else that they aren't right now at the expense of everything that's physically around them. And that blows my mind. And today it like really bummed me out seeing that the streaming platforms for music, it's horrible. Like I'm teaching music to kids. I have a class today, I'm still teaching my songwriting stuff. And when I go through and analyze a song from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it's so much different than this year. This is like the advanced class. I've let them each pick an artist. And so it's who they're listening to now. And even an artist who graduated from Juilliard with a degree in like cello performance, Lauve, and like she's an amazing jazz singer, but her songs are 2 minutes long. The chorus is within 20 seconds because you don't get streaming credit if you don't listen to at least 30 seconds of the song. So it's made choruses. There's no intros anymore. There's no extended first verses. There's no bridge. There's no solo. It is bonkers how that has changed art. And I think we're about to get it in what was getting into good TV and good narratives. Now we've jumped the shark and we're getting to second screen ability. It's almost like my favorite line that I do all the time from High Fidelity with John Cusack, and that book from Horner, so good. But he loves music so much and he gets into music so much that a lot of times it's overwhelming. And that's how I feel. We've talked about, I wear earplugs in most public settings to block out noises and sounds that drive me insane. And I know that makes me super strange. But he says they were arguing over what we should listen to in the shop today. And they're like, hey, would you chime in? You're the owner of the shop. And he goes, just put on something I can ignore. And I love that. It always made me laugh. And I was like, my goodness, so many times I just wish I could block it out. And now everyone has to see everything in a way that they could be doing 4 things at the same time. And I'm like a new Pearl Jam album comes out. The last thing I want to do is sit and put that Pearl Jam album on while doing some spreadsheets.
And then ignore it. Yeah.
And also having episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine on my phone over here.
Yeah.
And again, I know I'm the old man yelling at the clouds. I didn't think I was going to turn into the Gran Turismo version of Clint Eastwood this early in my life. I'm going to beat him by 40 years. I'm going to blow Larry David out of the water, and Clint Eastwood's grumpiness, I'm going to hit it by the time I'm 46, and it's going to be a sight to see. So there's my soapbox of the day. It disappointed me as a storyteller. You're just like, and this Netflix showrunner was just like, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I've never heard the second screen phrase, but as I've kind of watched, our lives get more digital and like our heads down at this thing more than they should be. I'm thankful for the way my brain works, but the thing that hit me was, and I'm kind of dabbling in this, I'm looking for a better opportunity, is that I'm interested in the eye doctor technology that is coming. From an investment standpoint, from a business standpoint, it's like, we're in the problem creation phase right now, where everybody's necks are probably getting chunked out of whack. And then what are eye doctors about to do other than all buy yachts? When we're just constantly inside of this screen, and then we're in this screen, and then we're in this screen, like it's going to mess our eyeballs up. And I mean, more and more these days, and I mean, I don't think I'm the old man yelling at the clouds yet. Maybe I am, but like the peaceful walk outside where there's no tech and nothing going on is awesome. And what's strange is that I don't even have that stressful life that would demand a peaceful walk. I just getting away from the dings and the buzzes is like, it's awesome. So like, will I put on the Vision Pro or VR? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll make it all the way to the grave without it because, but our kids won't. No chance. Like they're gonna love it. It's gonna be so engaging. It's gonna be like entertainment. Give me more of it.
Fortnite, but you're actually in the world of Fortnite.
Yeah.
That's they are going to love it.
I mean, if you put me inside Super Mario Brothers, I would have been like, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely put me in there with the fireballs, with the banging the bricks.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm all over it. I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Yep.
I would have borrowed money to buy whatever.
We thought the Power
roses.
Glove was cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know we need to wrap up time-wise, places to go and people to see and all of that. Matt, thanks for joining us. What's the best way for people to keep up with you online? Speaking of online.
So I don't really know. I'm so bad at that stuff. So I've got an Insta and Murph, and I started up a Mivallo deal for it's like Mivallo Life on Insta.
How do you spell it?
Mivallo.
Okay.
So the website will be mivallo.com.
Okay.
And it's there. And then I put up just like I launched the Insta like a week ago. Like it's so brand new. And it's just like, I don't want to rush through this phase. Like I've done this before. This is the fun part.
Yeah.
Building something, fighting through all of these challenges, right? It's like when things are blowing and going, it's exciting, but like the fun stuff is the journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it really is. And I hope whether they're screenwriters or whether they're, building a business, like don't get annoyed with the journey. Like I know that I've got a mountain to climb in front of me that is like Everest Patagonia size, with like, again, I don't know junk about bathing suits or really apparel. I really don't. But like the journey is fun. That's where you will look back in that rearview mirror and be like, hey, remember when we solved that problem? Remember when we kind of built this and we had to do it this way instead of this way? It's like, that's the fun, you know? And I don't mean to sound crass about it, but a whole bunch of more zeros rolling into your bank account is not nearly as exciting as everybody thinks it is.
Yeah.
It's just not. It solves all the problems that don't matter. That's all it does. So
well, we'll put all that in the show notes, so you guys can check that out, make it easier, get the links. And if you're enjoying the show, thanks for rating, review it on Apple and other places you might listen. And hope you have a great day.
You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't?